I've worked for Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO, and National Geographic. I have a lot of experience under my belt when it comes to this filmmaking thing, and I have done a lot of stuff pretty much in any department that was needed at the time. I've done a lot of background stuff. I've done a lot of PA stuff. I've done a lot of projects on my own, and I've also gone out and shot projects for other people. And I want to tell a crazy story about how I gained my confidence on set. I don't recommend anybody taking these particular actions in the business because is actually absurd of what I did. So let me just tell y'all this story. So here I am, a newbie on set as a background actor, and obviously I had been going around talking to people like, oh my god, we got the gig and everything like that, blah blah blah. And it's kind of nerve wracking, to be honest with you. It's kind of nerve wracking when you actually wanted to do filmmaking your entire life and you finally got a call back to come and do a show and you're a background actor. And it was my very first project, which was Noelle for Disney Plus. This is back when Disney Plus was first popping off, and Noelle was their like flagship Christmas movie. This movie was about an elf played by Anna Kendrick who was trying to retrieve one of Santa's reindeers that got away. That's like the cleanest, shortest description that I can actually give you. Now, the scene in this movie that I was there for was I was going to be a marathon runner. There was supposed to be a Christmas marathon in the middle of the movie, and we was in our ugly Santa sweaters and things like that. It was kind of hilarious. Anyway, so I got to talking with a lot of other extras and on. So anyway, I got to talking with a lot of other background extras on the set, talking about how they got the job, how long have they started this, how much money they making. I was asking all the questions, and the reason why I was asking all the questions is because I was here to learn. If you don't know, I started another YouTube channel called Nerd Torch TV. It's where I talk about anime, comics, and gaming type stuff. That's where I'm gonna post my higher effort content. And I started a talk show on that YouTube channel where I asked actors and voice actors about how they got started in the industry. And eventually I met Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo was the person who actually told me how to become a background actor on set and everything like that. So this was my first gig I got ever since talking to Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo put me in this position. And to be honest with you, like without him, like my career probably would be going a lot slower than what it is right now. Anywho, so I'm on set asking all the questions. And I realized I'm very self-aware. So I realized that I'm getting a lot of anxiety. And the reason I was getting a lot of anxiety, which is not like me, by the way, I don't really get anxious about much of anything. So I was getting a lot of anxiety because of some of the people I was talking to. Some of the people I was talking to was letting me know that if you do this, you'll get fired. If you step out of line this way, you'll get fired. If you talk to this person, you'll get fired. It was just all these things that they was telling me, by the way, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And stay in a little box so that you don't get fired. I didn't like that very much. Fast forward a couple more projects because I was working on a lot of different projects at the time. I finally got to an HBO project, and I personally don't like being anxious. So I came up with a crazy idea. And this is the part where I say I do not recommend anybody doing this. My crazy idea was that I needed to get fired. And the reason I came up with this idea because it's like if I'm fired at least once, at least I will get used to it. And then that way when I find another job, I can already know what it's like to be fired. And that way the anxiety goes away. I know. Very crazy. Like I said, I do not recommend this. Anywho, I was on set to learn anyway. So I needed to figure out what is it that I need to learn. Because the reason I was on set to learn, and the way I say this, is because I need to learn what am I missing from the feature film creation process in order for me to go out and make my own feature films. So what am I missing as a creator that I can get from being on set? So the first thing I started doing, I started sneaking out. Now, let me explain. When you're a background actor, you come into a place on set called holding. So you come in, you fill out your paperwork. By the way, you get paperwork every day for your paycheck. It's a very crazy system. There's very few places that don't do it this way, but you have to fill out, I believe it's a 1099 every single day that you work. And so that means if I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if I'm working the whole week, I'm literally filling out the same piece of paper every day. And so that way I can get paid 2 weeks from the time that I worked. So what that means is that if you work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 2 weeks later, on another Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you're going to have a check in the mail. You're going to have 3 separate checks in the mail. Crazy, right? Anyway, crazy system. So, holding is a place where you do all your paperwork. You have a production assistant who's in charge of watching you and making sure that you don't get out of line or anything like that. It's usually a location that's far away from everybody else who's actually working on set so that you don't really disturb anybody or anything like that. Sometimes the locations will have holding kind of close by, so that you do have to be quiet and mindful and things like that of what's happening on set. But this holding is, from my experience, holding was like typically relatively far away. So anywho, I started sneaking out. You're not supposed to do that, but I started doing it because I was anxious. Like I said, I was afraid to get fired, and so I was like, all right, I need to loosen myself up, get out there, break and bend a few rules so that I can kind of see what I can get away with without, getting in trouble and trying to see where the line was where I'll actually get fired. So I started sneaking out and going to different departments and just asking questions to people. Sometimes I'll just be asking questions like to somebody that's like, hey, so what's your job? I will say that people were absurdly friendly to this strange person that was just walking up to them, just asking them what their job was. And literally everybody would just start explaining what their job was. And I remember I was on this TV show called Lodge 49. I think that was on Amazon, actually. So on that TV show, I was there for like a week. And so I snuck out of holding. And it was really crazy, too, because I didn't get caught, surprisingly. Either I didn't get caught or they just didn't care. Because I was totally in a whole costume. I played a character that was literally a human chess piece. So I was in this absurd costume at the time. Actually, on that day, I was a waiter. So I had a blazer on and whatnot. So anywho, I sneak out of holding. And I am literally like standing next to the people who have the camera, and I'm like, hey, so I asked this random lady, so what's your job, what are you doing? And she was so nice. She's like, she looks at me, she said, oh my god, you're so nice for asking. Here, let me show you what I do. And she gave me a hug, which was crazy. So she was acting like it was the nicest thing ever that I asked her, like, what does she do for work? And so she gave me a hug. And she's like, here, sit down, let me show you. She had me sit next to her, and apparently she was a script supervisor. And so I was like, okay, so what's that? And she's like, oh, no, I'm the person who takes notes of the script and what has been said on screen and things like that. I put notes on things that have been changed. I've also marked the takes that are good for the editors and so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I actually sat with her for like an hour of her just watching her work and her describing what her job was. And that was great. And I did this various times on various different projects across the board up until the point where I hit HBO. So when I hit HBO, this is where I'm starting to push the boundaries a little bit. So beyond sneaking out of holding, I am now like asking about equipment and things of that nature. This is where it took the cake. I kind of skipped over the things that weren't as interesting because that's kind of like the most that would happen. I would sneak out and then they would ask me, like, I would ask them rather what their job was, and they would just teach me. And so I had a lot of hands-on experience on these film sets where people would literally just teach me how to do their job. But at this point, this is the time where I started messing with things in the camera department and the HBO project. I forget what project that was at. I have no idea. So, but I do remember it was an HBO project, and it was a scene where we was on a baseball field. So my camera was not my camera, but my phone was actually going low on battery, and I had my charger with me. So I set my phone to charge on the camera car, or the camera cart rather, not the camera car, because those are two different things. So for those of you who don't know, a camera cart is like a cart that you push. It has wheels on it, and this is where they load all the camera equipment up for the production. So this camera cart has like extra batteries and things like that that are charging, and they can actually move the camera cart around so that they can actually like keep all the gear close by and things like that. So a person who I would assume is a production assistant out of nowhere just starts yelling, "Hey, hey, whose phone is this? Whose phone is this?" And then I'm like, "Oh, it's me. It's my phone, bro. I got you right here." And so I just walk up to him very calmly, very straight face. I walk up to him like, "Hey, bro, I appreciate it, man." And I like, he's like holding the phone in his hand, and I just reach up and just take it out of his hand. I was like, "Hey, bro, I appreciate you, man." And he was like, "Do you know what this is?" Clearly, as after explaining it to y'all, I know exactly what it is. But like I said, I was pushing the boundaries here, and I probably was about to get fired. And so the best thing for me to do at the time was to play dumb. So that's what I did. He was like, "Do you know what this is?" And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And that's the face I gave him. I'm just staring at him like this. And he's staring at me like that. And he's like, "That's the camera cart." And then I respond, "Oh, word, that's dope, man. Like, I didn't even know that was the camera cart." And he looks at me, and I look at him with a smile on my face, like, "Hey, man, I didn't even know it was a camera cart." And for a moment, we just stare at each other. And so while we're staring at each other, he's like, "You're not supposed to touch that." And then me, it's just like this. I'm like, "Oh, my bad, bro. Don't even trip, man. I ain't gonna touch it no more." And I sit there after saying that, and I keep smiling. And it's this awkward, long silence that we have staring at each other. And he said this. He said, "Don't do that again." And I looked right back at him. I said, "Oh yeah, man, I won't do it again." And in my mind, like, bruh, my armpits were sweating while I'm staring at this man's soul. Like I can feel like it dripping down the sides of my body. Like when I get nervous, that's what happens. Like if my armpits are open, then sweat just starts radiating. Heat just comes from here, and it just starts sliding down my sides. But I don't break character. I sat there and I looked him dead in his eyes, and I stared at this man the whole time. And he was not happy. He was like, "Yeah, don't do that again." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, man, I appreciate you." And I just walk away, and I just knew I am going to be fired. And at that point, I did not get fired. So that was the last time I was pushing the boundaries of what I was doing. I was like, okay, so if I didn't get fired for that, like that's probably the biggest thing that you can probably do is charge your phone on the camera cart. That's probably like the biggest thing that you can do that's probably gonna get you fired. If I did not get fired for that, they're probably not gonna fire me for much of anything else that I would just be willing to accidentally do. And so that day, the anxiety just left because that was probably the most absurd thing that I was willing to do on purpose in order to get fired, and I still didn't get fired. Which is crazy that I didn't get fired, but that was like the most absurd thing. Still didn't get fired though. But later on, when I got a job as a production assistant, I learned about unions. So there are a lot of different unions in the filmmaking industry, which what that means is that, like, for example, if I'm a production assistant, like, the only person that can really fire me is the people above me, like my production, my what would be called my key PA or my key production assistant. Or like when I was a production assistant for Genius, that project, I think the person that could have fired me was only the key production assistant. Then there was the other assistant directors, and then the director himself. Like, those are the only people that can fire you. So then when you're in a different department, let's say you're in the sound department, you have like the people who are in the sound department, and these departments don't cross over at all. So like if somebody's upset with you over in sound, the person, if I'm over here in this department, they can't fire me. So you're kind of like safe for a lot of things. Now, obviously, like there are some things that you can do that's kind of just off the wall absurd that will get you fired, no matter what department you're in. But I'm just saying, like, the way that other people are talking to me about, like, if you accidentally step out of line, you're gonna get fired instantly and sent home and stuff like that, is not like that at all. As long as you're like a normal person just doing their job, you're not getting just fired like that and sent home. It is not that type of business. And yeah, as somebody who literally tried to get fired on purpose and failed, I failed at getting fired. I can tell you now that it's a pretty chill industry, and it's something, and I love it, man. I love it. 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 Can't get fired too. But anyway, guys, if you like this story of me purposely getting fired from my filmmaking jobs, like this video. Like this video, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.